Welcome back. Fantasy football is back. This is the time of year where everyone gets into the groove of things. Now, I know everybody's wondering, what do you mean get into the groove of things? Fantasy drafts usually aren't until the end of September, maybe August. But a lot of players not only play in Redraft, but we play in Dynasty also. There might be a lot of questions out there like what's the difference or what's better? Today I'm going to talk about that. Let's go. So in my personal opinion, I will say that I prefer a Dynasty league, but I'm going to go over the pros and cons of both between Dynasty leagues and Redraft leagues. First, let's talk about Redraft. Redraft is a set league where you usually draft towards the end of the preseason, right in the beginning of the real NFL season. You draft a specific list of players, and then you play that season, and next season it starts all over. Here's some pros and cons with Redraft. One of the funnest things about Redraft is the draft itself. Getting to pick all the players you want, getting to find the values, draft strategies, mock drafting. It's one of the best things about the redraft system. Another pro is the camaraderie. Getting together every single year with your friends, your buddies. Sometimes you don't talk to these guys all year. Sometimes you might have, group text that you're talking to guys all year round. But sometimes you really don't talk to them until that fantasy season. So that's pretty fun. Playing with the same group of guys every single year, building up rivalries, talking trash of, you're building up rivalries from 5, 10, sometimes 15, 20 years. You're playing with the same group of guys. And it gets to a point where every single year you're ready to just talk smack and beat up on the same guys every single year. Another pro is having a fresh start. So obviously in a redraft, usually there's 10 to 12 teams on average. You can only be one winner. Some people play second and third place winners, but in general, you're only going to have one winner. Now, it's not always going to be a year, obviously. Sometimes you pick bad players, or sometimes you have injuries. Sometimes your trades don't work out the way you wanted to. It's not always going to be a year. Even the best fantasy football players don't win every single year. So the cool thing about redraft is every single year you get a new chance and it starts all over. It starts fresh every single year. Now that could also be one of the bad things about it is, as soon as you win your title, the next day no one cares. You're no longer the champ. It's a new season. Your points don't roll over. You don't get to, you can victory lap all you want every single year. But at the end of the day, the new season is a new champ. One of the things I don't like about redraft is, you can play in a keeper league, obviously, but most redrafts in general settings, you don't keep your players. So, for instance, if you picked, a late round running back that helped you win the title, you don't get to keep him for your next year. You have to reinvent yourself and reinvent your team every single year, which is something difficult, which obviously is one of the fun things about fantasy football, but it could also be one of the difficult things. I really love playing fantasy football in a redraft setting because, again, every single year it's something fresh. I enjoy starting from the pinpoint and having the same exact advantage as my friends and co-managers and everyone that I'm playing against in the league and having a chance to beat them every single year. Now, these are some of the pros and cons with playing Dynasty. For the hardcore fantasy football players, 6 months just isn't enough to get it done. You go through the draft season, you go through, the off season, and you get ready for fantasy football. Then you go through the preseason. Next thing you know, the season's over with, and you don't know what to do with yourself for the next 6 months. So that's why I prefer playing in a Dynasty league where it's just fun all year round. The group text, the management of your team, talking trash, the engagement is all year round. Everything that you can have fun with in redraft for those 6 to 8 months out the year, you get that feeling all year round. And for the hardcore fantasy football players like myself, that's something we enjoy. Another good reason why I like Dynasty football over redraft is because I get to keep the players that I love playing. It's as close to being a real life NFL GM as there is. Obviously, you're not paying the players, or you're not the boss of all these guys, but you get to manage your team every single year as an NFL GM would. You get to pick your players. You get to watch out for contracts. If they get injured, if they get into legal trouble, all those things plays into a part of your team. And every year you get to choose from a new set of rookies. So it just adds an extra little twist of strategy into the mix. Speaking of adding another little extra strategy to the mix is trading picks. Now, even in a redraft setting, you can trade your draft picks, but it's only for that year. For instance, if you have a first round draft pick, you might want to trade back into the first round and acquire an extra, third or fourth rounder for that year. But it adds an extra layer of strategy when you're trading picks in a dynasty league. In a redraft league, I can't trade, a number 1 running back for maybe a number 2 running back, a number 3 receiver, and a first rounder next year. You can do that in a dynasty league. You can add an extra little salt and pepper to the trade and help, round out that trade. You can build for the future, Or you can go all in like Les Need and say F them picks. I want to win it this year. Now that being said, for all those pros are some cons. Some of the cons of a dynasty league are the casual players. Those are the guys who, again, might enjoy getting together with the guys and playing fantasy football, but they're not, all the way into it. They're keeping up with it on to a certain degree. They don't want to deal with it all year round. They want to play for a few months and then be done with it. And there's room for fantasy football for players like that. But in a dynasty league, that's very hard to keep engagement. It's very hard to keep the whole league together and have the same players every single year when you have, 2 or 3 cast-offs who are not paying attention to the league and not keeping engaged and just not interacting with the players. Sometimes you just don't have, enough hours in a day. You might work 8 hours a day. You need to sleep 8 hours a day. Sometimes you just can't manage it all between, work life, family, relationship, hobbies. Sometimes there's just not enough hours in a day to focus on just fantasy football or to add an extra thing to worry about. Again, at the end of the day, it is a game, but you want to win. A lot of times there's money involved, but you also want to win no matter what. So you're going to put some time and effort into, managing your fantasy football roster. So that does take a little extra time, and sometimes it takes away from other things. And for some people, it's not that important, and that's okay. One of the main things that a lot of people don't feel comfortable playing in a dynasty setting is they don't feel comfortable, scouting rookies. They don't want to watch, the college game or look out for all the new rookies. And in a redraft league, they play a specific part to a certain degree. Really, if you watch the first round and you see where, all the guys get drafted at, those are really the main players you're looking out for. But in a dynasty league, you have to dig deeper than that. A lot of times you have to stash those guys with higher upside and think about the future. So you're not just playing for this year, you're playing for years down the road, which is again another added bonus in the dynasty format. So again, I do think that dynasty is a lot funner than redraft, but I have love for both. I enjoy playing in a redraft setting, I enjoy playing in a dynasty setting. However, I will say dynasty is better. Thanks for tuning in to today's video. Remember, subscribe to see more content from me and everyone here at Just in Time Media.